Welcome back to another episode of Bleav in Tigers podcast, and it feels amazing coming to you on days like this. The Tigers just finished a historic, absolute roundhouse blowout, demolish, whatever you want to call it, against the Mariners, and it was not fun for Seattle. Even from the first inning, like the Tigers got it started early, 1 run in the first, and then 4 in the third, and 6 in the fourth, and 4 in the sixth. Like, they were just piling it on all night. And especially when you have a guy like Skubal on the mound, it was a disaster for the Mariners today. And the Tigers completely took advantage in what was probably the best offensive night I've ever seen from this 2024 Tigers team. And we'll start there. Everybody ate. Everybody on this Tigers lineup that started got a hit. And matter of fact, there were 10 Tigers players who had a hit tonight. 10. And there were guys who had 4 hits, who had 3 hits, who had 2 hits. It was incredible to watch, but it seems like it was completely out of nowhere. Like the last Mariners series kind of had its ups and downs. Tigers offense wasn't great, but it had definitely been worse throughout the season. And then obviously the Tigers go out to the Giants, but coming off of a road trip where you're playing a team twice and facing a pitcher twice and George Kirby, that's very hard for some teams, right? Being able to produce against one of the best pitchers in baseball, a pitcher who, honestly, early in the season, if we talk about late June, early July, was competing for the Cy Young Award with Tarik Skubal, with Corbin Burns, and all of these names that we are hearing now. Obviously, I don't think his performance is going to do him any favors, later in the season. I mean, his ERA jumped up a fair bit. Giving up 11 runs will never do great things to your ERA, but the Tigers offense, it just seemed like there was no stopping anybody. They got to him quickly. Like I will say, his pitch count was not very high for the amount of runs that he gave up. Yeah, Kirby was only 86 pitches deep, and he had given up 13 hits on 11 runs and a walk. 5 strikeouts in the mix there too. It's just so crazy to think that we talked earlier in the season about this Tigers team not swinging on the first pitch, not being aggressive when they're getting pitches that they should hit. It was the complete opposite today. Like this was an entirely new Tigers team, and I won't read too much into it yet. We'll talk about that later, but I think this is just huge. This is such a morale boost in the clubhouse. Granted, I've never been in a clubhouse, so it could be completely different, but having every single person that you throw out on the starting lineup get a hit, and they were all quality hits too. Like you look at players like Baez, who only had 1 hit. Baez hit a home run. Granted, Seattle didn't think it was a home run. It was gone. That was Randy Rosarena could not get to that ball. That was a home run. He's been looking pretty good recently, and I guess in the past you can say he has been a player that you've maybe not looked down upon is the right word, but seen as a lower caliber player in comparison to some of the players in this lineup. I think he's trying to cement his spot in the lineup. Granted, it's been hard because you have guys like Riley Green, you have guys like Kerry Carpenter. You don't really have a ton of consistent guys, and Baez is definitely not there when it comes to consistency. So being able to stand out, it isn't very hard, but for a guy like Baez who is known for having swings, like he'll be very good one series, not great the next, and that's just the player he is. So being able to stand out in a roster, in a lineup necessarily like this is kind of hard, but I mean everybody ate, and I'm gonna go down the lineup and give you every single stat line. Like it was incredible. Vierling was 2 for 4. He scored twice. Carpenter 3 for 5 on the day, 2 home runs, 3 RBIs, had 2 strikeouts, scored twice. That's still an incredible day. I don't care about the 3 strikeouts. And then Colt Keith, hitting third in the lineup, was 2 for 4 with a strikeout. He was also incredible. He also scored twice. Gio Urshela was 4 for 5, almost had 5 hits in the day. He was very close in his final at bat. Had an RBI, scored 3 times. Bleav Madris, who I wasn't high on when he first came to the league, but he has definitely solidified his spot. He's hitting 304 on the season with 776 OPS. And the sample size is getting to a reasonable space. Like, he's almost at 60 at bats. He's a player I wouldn't mind seeing on the Tigers next year. Parker Meadows, 1 for 5. But, your one hit was a double, and you did score off of that. Jake Rogers was 3 for 5. He had 7 RBIs. We'll talk about this later, but that is a ridiculously historic number for a Tigers catcher. The last Tigers catcher to do that did that in the 70s, in the early 70s. I believe it was 1974, the last time a Tigers catcher had 7 RBIs on one night, and Jake Rogers went out and did it. So, absolutely incredible performance from him. But the 8-9 guys look good too. McKinstry was 2 for 5. Scored once, had 2 doubles on the day, and then obviously Baez 1 for 4 on the night, but 2-run home run, which was a bomb. One of the Tigers' 4 home runs during the day, and frankly, there was no stopping this Tigers offense. You took Kirby out, they still got to every single pitcher out there, maybe with the exception of Leo Rivas, who is a shortstop, if you are not familiar, and made his first ever pitching debut, and maybe his last, and he could end his career with a 0.0 ERA on a 1 whip. I say that's pretty solid numbers. But, seeing a position player pitch, it's interesting in and of itself, but it's so hard as a hitter to go from upwards of 90 miles an hour, maybe even 100 if it's, a special starter like Tarik Skubal, then going straight to a guy like Leo Rivas, who's never made a pitching appearance before in his career and is throwing 45-mile-an-hour eephuses down the middle. It's hard to adjust to as a hitter, and it's hard to get balls out of the park. So that's why I'm kind of in favor of not counting hitter stats when they hit against position players, because it's an entirely different thing. They're not legit pitchers. If you get a home run, cool. I don't know if that should count to your stats, because you're playing against somebody who literally does not play that position in baseball and does not try to play that position, and you're out there, you're hitting glorified batting practice, even slower than batting practice sometimes. But Tigers only got 1 hit on Rivas, and maybe he's a great pitcher. And I wonder, this is not anything that's going to happen soon. And admittedly, now that I realize this is going to come out of my mouth, I think this is dumb. But maybe we see a pitcher in 10 years where he goes out there and he pitches like a position player would. Eephus, 98-mile-an-hour fastball. Like, I wonder if a position player type pitcher could be serviceable, because if you put him in the bullpen, teams are not going to game plan for him, especially if they're, playing an elite starting pitcher. You don't know if you're going to see him. You don't know how long he's going to be out there, because he's throwing 40 to 50 miles an hour. Like, he's not going to have a tired arm. I wonder if that's a strategy some teams will try to implement. Again, I know it sounds similar to a knuckleball pitcher, but knuckleballers, it's typically a little bit faster, and they have a couple other pitches in their arsenal. And seeing a knuckleball is completely different than an eephus. Like, those are completely different pitches to see as a hitter. And I wouldn't say it's easier to game plan, because there's not that many people that hit knuckleballs, but you know what you're going to try and do against the knuckleball. Against the eephus, you're going to see a 40-mile-an-hour pitch, think you're going to hit it over the fence, and line out to left field or ground out shortstop. It's just an interesting water that I don't think any manager or any organization is going to tread. I don't think it's going to happen. But in the case that it does, I think you can have an elite reliever who throws 40 to 50 miles an hour and maybe throws in a fastball here and there. And maybe there has been a pitcher like that, but I don't think there has been in recent memory. And that could be something you throw out there, but I don't think a pitcher is ever going to be as dominant as a guy like Tarik Skubal. I mean, if you're throwing 40 miles an hour and Tarik Skubal's throwing 100, like, they're going to get to him sometimes. And frankly, the Mariners did not get to Tarik Skubal today. And we'll talk more about that as we get a word from our sponsors. We're back, and it is time to talk about Tarik Skubal. He has been incredible. Nothing short of incredible throughout this season. He was that again today, and he now leads the Triple Crown race. He's leading in ERA, strikeouts, and wins. Yes, I know we're in August. Yes, I know the season's not over. We're past the halfway point, ladies and gentlemen. He's still the AL Cy Young frontrunner. He's still what I think is the best pitcher in baseball. You can make an argument about Chris Sale. You can make an argument about Reynaldo Lopez. I won't tell you you're wrong, but I'll tell you to look at the stats. Okay, Tarik Skubal has been completely dominant. Okay, the ERA number is still great. 2.53, that's incredible. Pitchers would die for that number. Okay, he leads, and he leads the MLB in ERA and in wins, but he leads the AL in strikeouts. This could really be a historic year. He's only one strikeout behind Dylan Cease for the lead out of all pitchers in the MLB. He might be the best pitcher I've seen in a Tigers uniform in my lifetime. Yes, there's Justin Verlander. Yes, there's Max Scherzer. I think Tarik Skubal, right now, as of, what day is this? August 13th, in this 2024 season, I think he has been a better pitcher for the Detroit Tigers than Justin Verlander was. Prime for prime, JV versus Skubal. I think you'd rather have Skubal on the mound. I think he's more reliable. I think he gets more strikeouts. And I think he's even worse to game plan against. And I think he's even better against very quality hitters. Because JV had guys that he would struggle against. Granted, all-stars, Hall of Famers. Skubal doesn't necessarily have that. He can dominate anybody. Shohei Ohtani, Bobby Witt, like, the list goes on of players who cannot hit against Tarik Skubal. And nobody really got to Skubal tonight. Like, obviously he gave up one run. Whatever. I don't really, it doesn't really matter. It was a few far and in between run. Only gave up 3 hits on the day. Had 9 strikeouts, 1 walk, and hit a batter. Hit 2 batters. He looks so dominant on the mound that I don't know what other pitcher right now you would take over him. There's guys that are younger. Yes. There's guys that have been doing it for longer. Yes. I think right now, everything being as it is, forgetting about age, forgetting about experience with the club and familiarness with the city, I think every single team would take Tarik Skubal as their ace. Yes, I'm including the Braves. I don't see a world where anybody's better than Tarik Skubal. He's so dominant on the mound. Every time he's on the mound, he gets so much run support. And that's because you know what you're getting. Skubal is the opposite of inconsistent. Whenever he gives up a run, let alone a runner, it's already a disappointing day for him. And he knows for the rest of his outing, however many innings that's going to be, he's going to go out there and pitch some of the best baseball you will ever see in your life. He started the year just touching 100. He's now reached over 100 countless times and is one of the hardest throwing starting pitchers in the league. Listen to me when I say this. If the Tigers do not build around Tarik Skubal this offseason, we're done as a franchise. You have a generational player. Besides Miguel Cabrera, I think he's the best Tigers player to wear a uniform in the past 20 years. He's incredible. You cannot find anything better than him, even if you look in the past. He has been incredibly solid throughout this season. It's not unrealistic to think he can get the Triple Crown. It's not unrealistic to think he can get the MLB Triple Crown as well as the AL. If the Tigers go ahead and make a run here late in the season to maybe push for a wild card game, although I don't think it's going to happen, I'd say it's plausible. Okay, it's not ridiculous to say that. That could be a run the Tigers make. And if the Tigers make the postseason, you have to start having a conversation about MVP. Right? Because every single time he's on the mound, you feel like you can win a ball game. And for a team that is under 500, hasn't really touched 500 a lot on the season, having a pitcher, and I know win-loss record isn't fully indicative of what a pitcher does on the mound, but a 14-4 record is not anything to snooze at. Okay, and it's a result of incredible pitching, which lands him among the best in the league. The Tigers are not one of the best teams in the league, and frankly, they're 57-63. If they didn't have Tarik Skubal, we might not be at 50 wins this year. We might not. I don't think the Tigers would be much above a 40% win team. Okay, we've kind of hovered around 500. That's because of the elite pitching we've had all year. Jack Flaherty, Tarik Skubal, Casey Mize when he was here was fairly good, and there's a lot of other guys in this rotation who I think you can rely on. Reese Olson was also extremely solid. The influence from Skubal is huge. Pitchers go around him and they get better. The Tigers need to build around Skubal before it's too late. He's a Jeff Boras client. He might not want to stay in Detroit if they cannot put out a winning program. You need to do everything in your power to build around Tarik Skubal this offseason, even if you don't make the playoffs. Even if you don't make the playoffs, build around Tarik Skubal, sign some guys, be bold. Okay? Al Avila was bold. I don't think he was horrible as a GM, right? But he was bold. He signed Javier Baez. He signed Eduardo Rodriguez. He made some big contracts. Although regrettable, he tried to win. This offseason, we need to see Scott Harris try to win. There's going to be a lot of free agents. There's a lot of very, very, very good free agent pitchers this year that you could add along to a rotation that's already solid. Kaiser Montero is working to get himself in that rotation. And if you can just stack up that rotation with a ton of guys that you can rely on, get a couple of serviceable bats, that's serviceable bats, guys who can play every day and are reliable, preferably an infielder, somebody to replace what Zach McKinstry has done, and I don't know, frankly, if you're going to go out and get an everyday shortstop. I think you're going to have to play with Baez. But if you can just get some small pieces, or big, small pieces that you know can make an impact. Right? We saw the idea of signing Matt Chapman. Probably wouldn't have been a good idea. And I'm happy the Tigers, laid back on making that signing. But there's a lot of free agents this offseason. And there's a lot of guys on this team who are set to have another great year. Kerry Carpenter, coming off of injury, he looked better than ever today. Riley Green has looked better than ever this season. He's also going to come off of injury. Parker Meadows is looking to return. You might see Torkelson back in the major leagues next year. I just think it's time to start thinking about what this Tigers team can be. Because it can be. We can be something incredible in the near future. Tarik Skubal is going to help lead this team. And hopefully, we can find some great success, great playoff success next year. Because there's so many guys on this team. And Kerry Carpenter is one of those. He was incredible tonight. Incredible. 2 home runs. Another hit through there. He's a guy you can rely on. Even after this really long injury stint, when at first he was just thrown on the 10-day IL, uncertain of when he was going to come back. Akil Baddoo was called up. The assumption was maybe he's gone a couple of weeks. Maybe he's gone just shy of 20 days. He'll be back. It was much longer than that. We have not seen Kerry Carpenter in Tigers uniform for a long time. But he let us know why he's here. Tonight, he raised his average to 293. The OPS is up to 962 on the season. He's probably the most electric hitter on this Tigers offense. I don't think I don't think he's the kind of player that takes a lot of pride in himself. But you've got to admit as a player that you are just having an incredible season. Better than any other season previously. Like, even going back to last year, like, he has made a significant impact in every single stat that is measurable as a hitter over each year. First year, 310 on base percentage and a 795 OPS. Last year, 340 on base, 811 OPS. This year, 349 on base percentage and a 962 OPS, including a jump in slugging that was over 140 points. He has half of the home runs he had last year in less than half of the games. He's hitting home runs at a higher clip. He looks incredible. The Tigers need to build around this core that they have right now because there are so many guys in the MLB who are great, great, great talents. If we don't build around them fast, they could be gone. Obviously, I hope Kerry Carpenter spends the rest of his career in Detroit. He's a great kid, amazing hitter, and I've actually grown to enjoy him in the field as well as at the plate. And he excels in both. This is another game where we have to start thinking about what's this Tigers future going to look like. And frankly, Kerry Carpenter is going to put himself into all-star conversations in the future because he's that guy at the plate. And maybe I'm looking too deep into it, but I want to talk big picture here. Being able to get to George Kirby, and I touched on this earlier, he's one of the best pitchers in the American League. He was in the race for Cy Young. He had a very low ERA. He doesn't get blown up very often. He'll give up 3 runs here and there. I mean, I'm not saying he's a perfect pitcher. I'm not saying he's comparable to Tarik Skubal. Right? I think Kirby is noticeably less significant than Tarik Skubal. But if you think about it, big picture, being able to get to a pitcher that is that great shows what kind of a lineup you can have. Granted, you're not going to score 15 runs every single night. I understand that. But maybe, just maybe, this is something the Tigers can build on in the future, something they can see as a success point and know that they can face very, very, very good pitchers and deliver at a very good rate. The Tigers really have not done that this year. They've kind of struggled against solid pitching, and they've struggled against pitchers who I wouldn't even say are upper echelon pitchers. Like, they struggled against Jose Urena, former Tiger, earlier in the year. I wouldn't say he's an upper echelon player. Tigers struggled against him, but showing out against one of the best pitchers in the league, I think it just shows you what you have in this offense. I don't think a ton of people believe in this Tigers offense. Frankly, I didn't earlier in the season. We talk about late July, maybe into August there. The Tigers were on a bad stretch offensively. But I Bleav in this Tigers offense. Okay, this is a very, very, very elite pitcher that they got to. And guys who haven't been excellent this season. Gio Urshela has been great at times. He's kind of struggled recently. Doesn't necessarily have the pop that he used to. Is essentially just a single hitter. But so many guys showed their potential tonight. And hopefully Scott Harris will build on this Tigers offense. And frankly, find something to hang your hat on offensively. Tonight was one of those nights. Kerry Carpenter, Gio Urshela, all along the way. This Tigers offense should be special. It is special. Scott Harris and AJ Hinch can do something about it. The Tigers could contend. And I guess that's all we have for you tonight, but I want to leave this with you. If this Tigers offense, every player that's on the roster currently, no Ryan Vilade, just got options to AAA, if they can all produce like this on a consistent basis, what's the ceiling of this Tigers team? What do you think the Tigers could look like if the offense, granted, I'm not saying 15 runs, I'm just saying look this good, be competitive against good pitchers like this all the time? What could the Tigers look like? The pitching, you're always going to hang your hat in the pitching. The bullpen has been up and down throughout the year. Frankly, recently it's been bad. It's been bad. One of the worst bullpens in the league. Not going to sugarcoat it. But a strong starting rotation. Guys that you can rely on. What could this Tigers team look like if the offense was this reliable, this competitive all the time? And players who have struggled, what if they looked like this every single day? We'll be back with coverage tomorrow on the Tigers, but hopefully they can keep up the same level of offensive consistency. If you're watching on YouTube, of course, please feel free to give us a subscribe, a like, a comment. Let us know how we're doing. If you're listening on podcast form, give us a review. I like knowing how you guys feel about the podcast rather than me just throwing it out there. And if I'm doing bad, please let me know. 1-star review if you don't like it. But I Bleav in this Tigers team. We will be back tomorrow. Thank you for listening. We'll be back.